Okay, we've got a couple questions. We're coming up to an hour. That was very in depth. I'm curious with the Insight product. Do you think I would think there'd be a chance that once people install that, that could actually be a driver for your hardware equipment, your DM sales, as like, hey, we now know how to sort of collect and use the data. Now we need to collect actually data along the line. So could that be a driver for hardware sales?
Absolutely. So one thing that we discovered was we've been selling the hardware for a number of years now, and our initial sales were outside China. And the companies outside China are typically either branch plants of Western companies, or they are somewhat westernized in their way of doing things. When we sold products into China, what we discovered was that the knowledge and skills and capabilities in terms of using the measurement products was less, and there was far more variation in the manufacturing plants as well, which has driven us to do some refinements in that area. But one of the biggest things we realized was we can create even more competitive advantage for ourselves by integrating those with Insight, and also some precursors that we've provided to the market as well for ease of use, or an ease of the application for those products. Because then what we do is we tie the product results, or I should say the measurement results, more clearly into what's really happening in the line overall. Previously, what they had been doing was using tabletop instruments where they would bring samples and then test them using a manual procedure. And that doesn't give you anything near the amount of value that being able to actually tightly correlate what's going on at that step to the results at the end of the production line when the finished solar cells are tested. So that's definitely in our game plan and our roadmap.
All right. Taking questions here from the audience. Saul's asking, yeah, you in the past you've announced your DM sales, you 5 to here or there and so forth. You haven't announced any for a while. Could you maybe talk about that? And should we expect some more in the near term?
So there's a couple of things going on. One of them is that we've been working with we shipped a lot of product to China and installed the product just before and during the current pandemic. And there's a period of time where you need to spend getting systems dialed in. What we discovered in China was that we ideally would be sending people from Vancouver to go there to work on these things, because we discovered a few site-specific things that were causing us to need to do some adjustments in the products and so forth to get them dialed in and finally accepted. So because of the lack of travel, we've had to do that all remotely, and it's been taking a bit of time. But we're making progress on that, and we're close to getting the final acceptances at a few of the installations. We expect the sales to pick up again once that's done, because the customers, like any customer, what they want to see is they want to see the dial in. And then that's going to generate repeat orders with them. The other aspect is that over the last several months now, there's actually been a shortage of the raw materials, the polysilicon, and ultimately the wafers. So some of our customers have been running their plants either at lower capacity or even shut them down. And this has caused them to defer plant expansions, and we sell into plant expansions. So we expect to see the upstream work to build new capacity. This is basically due to the growth in the industry, is underway. These are plants that do the refining. They're really expensive, and they take a long time for them to build. So we expect to start to see more of the refining capacity and the wafering capacity come on stream late this year and into the early 2022, when the business should start picking up again. We have some early orders that we're looking at from some companies, but really what we're being told is to expect to see pick up, as I just mentioned, late this year and into early next year. So we're positioning ourselves for that.
You mentioned that your sales are associated with plant expansion. Do you ever get retrofitted onto existing production lines, or is it just when they build a new production line they'll drop you in?
Typically for the DM instruments, it's just new ones. And this is another one of the reasons why we decided to bring forward the Insight product as well, because as a software product, it can be installed in existing plants, and it uses the existing capital within those plants. So you don't have to actually make, other than buying the subscription and buying a server to run the Insight software on, you don't have to invest in more capital or do any changes in the manufacturing lines. They don't like to touch the equipment in the lines except for maintenance, unless they absolutely must, because what that does is that causes the throughput to go down. So it's very rare for them to change an existing line.
You're going to be able to price the system not as, oh, we need 20% or 50% margins on the Insight program. It's software, so it's largely a sort of upfront fixed cost. You're going to be able to price it on the value it generates for the client. And do you have any sense, or can you give us any ballparks as to, like, it's going to be $100,000 per installation, or can you give us any kind of pricing perspectives?
Well, we're looking at up to about $500,000 US for a typical large company plant, which would be about 5 gigawatts. So this is going to vary depending on negotiations and also on the features that they subscribe to as well. And that represents roughly 15% of what we'd estimate the value to be. Now, you know, I should make sure that people understand is that you know, these are market entry and numbers that I'm coming up with. So obviously our experience in the end will dictate our pricing. But we did a pretty thorough look at what the potential is for improvements in the production lines. So we're assessing that with these initial installations that we have as well. So we're confident in the numbers that we're going to put forth into the market. But you know, in the end, it's you see what the customers are, how they're using it, and adapt accordingly.
And because you've talked about three, the analyze, control, and the essentials. So that's for the essentials, and presumably the analyze and control will have greater value. So, and you'll have and you talked about your pricing model, some tiered pricing on that. So the getting up to the control level of functionality and pricing would be more valuable.
We've set that for the analyze level. So the essentials is going to be priced a bit lower to get people started, but we fully expect, and we will encourage them to move quickly to analyze after they get used to using essentials. Essentials is you know, in a way you could characterize it as being, get the customer seeing the basic value of the system and get them used to using it on a daily basis, but don't overwhelm them with capabilities. Then when they see what they can actually do with it, introduce analyze. So our marketing plan for the product is essentials is basically the way of getting them to adopt our way, as opposed to, you know, older ad hoc methods, get used to it, and then get them to realize the full value by an upgrade to analyze.
And so when you said that 500,000, was that for an analyze sort of full system, and the essentials would be a lower price, sort of get your foot in the door kind of price?
That's right. Yeah.
All right. All right. And interesting question here. Could your technology be used or adapted to other industries?
That is an interesting question. So I'll answer that by saying that there's been a number of companies that produce systems that don't do what Insight does, but do parts around it. And they have had a difficult time getting into the solar business. And we looked at what they were doing, and they were bringing things that had been set up for things like the automotive industry, and a way of thinking and a culture around that, and saying, oh yeah, we can do that for solar. It's simple, easy. We can put our stuff in. And then they found out that they were having difficulties. Well, the difficulties were because they were trying to bring a solution designed for a different type of industry into one which had different economic considerations and really a different manufacturing process as well. So the answer, I would say, is conceivably yes, but we would also approach that with a degree of caution, given the uniqueness of certain attributes, particularly this end-of-line testing of every single solar cell. The data mining techniques we've developed, though, those at the core of the intellectual property and insight, those could be applicable to many different semiconductor-related functions. So the answer is the core stuff potentially, but in terms of making things go forward for the company and the shareholders, our laser focus is on making sure that what we do is we get high adoption and success in the solar industry, which we know very well. Then we may look at moving it into adjacent areas based on the capabilities within the data mining and analytical algorithms that we have.
All right. You raised some over, I forget how much, over $3.5 million here recently. The use of proceeds for that, is it just kind of working capital, R&D, or is there any, like, I don't know, what does that get you, or what kind of runway or outcomes can that get you to?
Well, there's basically three sources, and you kind of covered them, right? One is working capital. The other one is moving Insight forward more effectively and more quickly. And the third one is building up our skills and presence in China, which is the key market. So I'll work backwards through those. So skills and presence in China. One of the things that I've come to the conclusion on is that even when travel resumes, it's probably going to be a little different than it was before the pandemic. So wishful thinking on this is not going to change the fact that we need to assume that travel is going to be less easy and less prevalent, and that what we need to do is make sure that on the ground we have feet on the street, both from a technical and a commercial perspective in China. So we have started to work with some people on a consulting basis to do that there, and we will be doing some hiring, and we actually are doing some hiring in China to build up the team there. And this is going to be especially important for Insight because to get the initial versions of Insight going, we want to be very close to the customer, working with them very closely, making sure that they're using that on a daily basis. And to do that, we need people who are skilled and capable in that kind of area. So we've promoted one of our existing people there who was with a process engineer with one of the first solar cell manufacturing companies in China, and knows the process end to end. But we're going to be hiring support for him and also senior commercial people as well in China. The second one, which is moving Insight forward more quickly, we've significantly scaled the development team. And we're also scaling our operations and support team as well in order to provide the basis to get the Insight development accelerated so that we can meet our milestones on that, and also to be able to provide support and the sorts of things that you need to do for a SaaS product, which is to be able to bring releases in a structured way to the field from time to time to provide the value that the subscription basis as opposed to a one-time purchase basis brings as well. Lastly, there's general working capital, which is all the stuff I just described, and also building up the manufacturing capability and our quality assurance capability for the existing products is something where we're expanding and strengthening the business.
All right. You talked about your milestones on the Insight. How is it going, like with the current customer? How challenging is it, the fact that you're stuck in Vancouver and they're doing that on the software implementation? What kind of milestones should we expect to sort of hear about as you move your new initial customers forward?
Well, in our recent corporate update, we announced that we'd got the system up and going, and it was meeting our expectations with the lead customer that we have on this, who helped us develop the product as well. So they've come back and they've requested some additional features and that help them to use it in a way that differentiates from existing systems they have. They're one of the more advanced manufacturers in terms of both their technology and also the processes in running their manufacturing plant. So they're a great starting point for us because they push us. So we are in the process of integrating those features now into the system that they have. And we're going to be running those with them as we go a little further through the summer. So we expect at the end of the summer or sometime in September that we'll have completed that phase of the work with them, and we'll have more news on it at that point. This is also around the time frame that we will start to do more activity in China in terms of getting prepared with a selected lead customer or 2 lead customers in China as well. So things are moving along. Now, could it have gone faster if we could travel? Yes, it could have. So there are, some continuing impediments due to the lack of travel, which, it's reality, and we've accounted for that in our planning.
All right. And on the competitive side, there's a question here about Applied Materials product. Can you just talk a little bit more about competition? We've touched on it so far, but any other sort of competitive threats you're seeing or barriers to other guys entering the market?
There's no competitive threat to us from their product. Their product is geared to the semiconductor industry, and Applied Materials is a huge company, and they're the long-standing gorilla in the equipment market for semiconductor manufacturing, and they have a really big portfolio of tools that are used in the plants, and what they're doing with their product is they're doing what I would describe as the semiconductor equivalent, in the sense that there's no single test at the end of the production line for integrated circuits. And the other thing is that it takes 3 months roughly to go from the raw material to the finished goods in semiconductor manufacturing. So 3 months is kind of a long time to wait to detect a fault. So you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, depending on the nature of the fault and the size of the plant that is concerned with this. So instead, what they do is they use data from their own tools at each step in the process, and they integrate that into an artificial intelligence and data mining system. And that's what they're doing. Interestingly enough, in their latest investor presentation, they've typically been a capital goods company. In their latest investor presentation, they said they're moving to a subscription model for this product and potentially for others as well. So we see alignment around the world in various industries on going to that model, which we think is advantageous for us, and also for the customers. Being able to pay as you go along with things that relate to operating efficiencies is actually a good way of doing it, because it manages the cash flow well. So it's a win-win as far as we're concerned. But anyway, to repeat, there's no competitive threat from Applied Materials on this, because their solution is specific to the semiconductor industry and not really transferable to solar.
All right, and we're quarter past the hour here, so we're deep into this. There's one last question here we can address. And I want to, have you been approached for exclusive partnerships or possible buyout for the Insight program? And I just want to add to that, are there any, with this software, you could work with distributors or other equipment suppliers within the supply chain? You've got the guy, I forget what they're called at the end, the tester at the end, any guy testing equipment in the middle that you can kind of partner with and offer kind of a whole solution from front to back of the supply, the production process?
We have had one company approach us in China for that at the recent trade show I described. We haven't really explored that with them at this point. We are talking to them. They are interested in providing turnkey solutions into the market. In this case, we'd want to see a little evidence that they're successful at doing this kind of thing before we would end up getting into any agreement with them. And it would not be exclusive either. In this industry, typically the manufacturers they don't like to buy turnkey unless it's for something new where they want to reduce their risk. They typically will buy the tools and the measurement instruments from a number of different suppliers, and they will do the integration themselves in their production lines. So we roll with that, and that's our expected business case for the product as well. To a degree, it helps us with insight because the fact that they're doing this themselves and they're not relying on a turnkey solution means that they have a greater need for something like insight to keep everything running together properly.
All right, it's 1:15. We should wrap this up. We've all got busy days. So Gord, thank you very much. That was really good. Great to catch up with you and to hear how you're progressing. Looks like with hopefully COVID wrapping up here, your jeans full of cash. Hopefully we'll get some good news out of you over the coming remainder of the year and into next year.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to a great end of the summer and into the last quarter of the year. We think the company will have some great news for people as we look forward. And it's a pretty exciting time for us getting this new product into the market. So thank you again, Martin.
All right, Gord, thanks a lot. Have a great day. And yeah, we'll get you back on the call later after some of this news has come out.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.